this morning. My name is Deanna, and I'm the owner of the company. And we have a passion and a mission to help people improve their mobility, their strength, their overall well-being through the use of our very active proposition, which we like to call urban polling, otherwise known as Nordic Walking. And I have Dr. Joy Cochran here with you guys today. Joy is really the star of the show. She is a doctor of physical therapy. Joy is part of our clinical evidence team and has led a lot of our education protocols. And so you're very, very lucky to have her. She's highly passionate, extremely specialized in the space of neurologic rehabilitation, specifically as it relates to Parkinson's. And so I'm excited for you to have Joy with you today. Thank you so much. And to Diane and April for having us.
Thank you very much, Deanna, for that nice, warm welcome. But again, thank you to Neuro Challenge for inviting us to speak today, and for all of you who are curious to learn more about urban polling. I think you guys are going to love it. So let's get started. I'm just going to quickly recap here. Deanna's already done most of my introduction, but I am very passionate about treating older adults and those with neurologic conditions. As you can tell here, people with Parkinson's have a special place in my heart because I am certified in LSVT Big, Parkinson's Wellness Recovery Moves, Rock Steady Boxing, and I'm a master trainer for urban polling. And the reason why I became associated with urban polling is because I got introduced to the poles in the clinic. And I have seen so many of my clients improve by using the activator poles. And I really want to spread the word on how transformative of a tool poles can be for so many people, and especially those living with Parkinson's. So let's take a quick little look at what the activator poles can do for people.
With the cane, it makes me lean to my right, and therefore I feel off balance, and so it's much slower moving. I don't feel the confidence to take off like I do with the poles. Once I have the poles in my hands, and it makes me stand straight up, and I just feel like I can't fall.
So what I hope you heard and saw there is, one, the activator poles can be really, really good as a better assistive device than maybe a cane or a walker. But we don't just use poles for walking aids. We also use them for exercises, and we use them for fitness. And I think that will come out as we go through this presentation today. Just a little bit more about the company. Urban Polling was actually founded in 2005 by an occupational therapist and gerontologist. She really wanted to use the research that's out there in regards to Nordic walking, but help her clients that were in rehab. So our polls were specifically designed through the lens of an occupational therapist to have more safety and more comfort. There is lots of research, like I just mentioned, actually over 300 articles on PubMed on the benefits of pole walking, 19 of which are specific to people with Parkinson's. And as a company, we've started doing specific research in regards to our activator and urban pollings, and we have 19 current and ongoing research articles. Some of the benefits that have been shown in this research specific to people with Parkinson's is that the poles will help improve their upright posture. It can help with their balance and strength. Poles really help to promote those big amplitude movements that we know that we need, because for people with Parkinson's, a lot of the times their movements are getting smaller and smaller. It will help with that rigidity so we can reduce stiffness. Poles can help with gait pattern and decrease some of that freezing. All of these things we're going to dive into a little bit more, but I just wanted to touch on them at the beginning. Poles can also help challenge people's coordination, sequencing, help with some of the cognitive challenges that people are having. They help increase speed, intensity, and endurance, which we know for people with Parkinson's, it's really, really important that we get our heart rate up so it can help us walk faster. It can help decrease stress, anxiety, and depression, which a lot of the times comes with a diagnosis of Parkinson's. And overall, it helps to build confidence and help to get people outside and socializing more in their community. As Deanna mentioned at the beginning, as a company, we really believe in community and strong partnerships with organizations that have the same mission as us, really to get people moving. And so we have partnered with so many organizations that help people with Parkinson's live better lives, right? Some of them directly and some of them not directly, such as the arthritis foundations, because a lot of people have comorbidities and have maybe some arthritis issues, maybe some balance issues. So we're affiliated with VITA, but really passionate about making sure that we're making strong commitments so all of our communities and our people with Parkinson's can live better. So, what is urban poling and Nordic walking? Well, Nordic walking was originally created by the Olympian cross-country skiers. They needed a way to be able to do training in the off season. So what they did was take off their skis and use their poles to be able to still work out during the summer months or when there wasn't snow on the ground. And what is known about cross-country skiing is that it is one of the best aerobic and anaerobic exercises that are out there. So when our company was created, we termed the key urban poling, and it is exactly the same as Nordic walking, except for with our specialized poles. From there, like I mentioned earlier, we took it one step further and created another technique called the activator technique. And that's the technique that's more used during rehab for people that need it for balance and offloading joints. So a lot of the times when I meet people, they're like, I don't need poles. I don't have any balance issues. I don't have any difficulties with walking. And really, that is a misconception. Poles can be used for many, many things. So we're going to show two different techniques. So for some people, they're going to need them for balance, maybe to offload painful joints. So we're going to look at the activator technique. This technique, the poles remain in front of you. They remain upright, and they're really going to help to stabilize you and probably take off some pressure on your joints. But we also have what's called the urban pulling technique. This technique, the pull handles are going to stay at an angle and they're going to catch on the ground to really help propel you forward so that you can walk faster. So this is more of the fitness technique, or the one that's going to help you get that heart rate up to 88 or 85% of heart rate max, which is where it needs to be in order to slow or stop the progression of that Parkinson's. But poles can also be very beneficial when exercising. They can help people get bigger range of motion. They can help people get better coordination. They can help allow people to have the confidence to maybe challenge themselves a little bit more. So let's look at walking. Walking is something that we do all the time, and we've been doing since a very young age. But when we're out walking without any poles, we're only using our lower extremity leg muscles. And I know a lot of people tell me that their main activity or their favorite exercise is walking. So by adding poles, we're now getting a total body workout. Poles help to activate over 90% of the muscles in our body. And what has been found is that by adding poles, we're now burning 20 to 46% of more calories. So I always say, who doesn't want to get a better workout? And actually, what the research shows in two separate, completely separate research articles that were systematic reviews, which is the highest level of research that's out there. One article, I never say his name because I always butcher it, but he was looking more at people that were using walking poles for, and they had conditions such as COPD, Parkinson's, and some other chronic conditions, as you see there on the slide. But then there's also another article by Saller et al. That was looking at more athletes or people that are using poles for sports. So completely different populations, but they came up with the exact same findings. Again, they came up that by using poles, we're increasing that caloric expenditure and oxygen consumption by anywhere between 20 and 46%. And I know that's a big range, but I kind of look at it like the 20% is probably the people that are using it for more of the activator technique or for balance. And the 46% are probably the people that are doing the urban pulling technique and using it as more of a fitness tool. But more so than that, it also increased people's heart rate, but people didn't realize that they were getting a better workout. So it did not increase people's rate of perceived exertion, which is how you report whether you feel like you're working harder. So people are getting a better workout, but not realizing they're getting a better workout. So again, I hear a lot of moans and groans when I talk to people about exercise. So this is one way to positively exercise and get a better workout without even realizing it. Another thing that by adding poles is that we're getting more strengthening. Again, I said we're activating 90% of our body's muscles, but if you think about it, for every 10 minutes of walking, you're getting 1,000 steps. And in those 1,000 steps, you're getting 1,000 abdominal contractions. So you're going to get that six-pack ab that we've always wanted, right? You're getting 500 latissimus dorsi contractions, and you're also getting 500 shoulder range of motion exercises. And so I like to keep that in that range of motion because a lot of the times people, some of the older adults or some of my Parkinson's clients have some issues with their shoulders. Their joints are limited for multiple different reasons. They're not standing up tall enough, so their joints aren't in proper alignment. Maybe they've had some injuries over the year. But just by adding poles and forcing that gentle arm swing while they're walking, it helps to improve the range of motion in their shoulders. So I know everybody doesn't have poles today, but I just want you to kind of feel what it feels like to activate those muscles that I'm talking about. So if you can take and put your hand and rest it on your legs or rest it on a countertop, but just kind of take your hand. So this hand right here is going to be my countertop. And this hand right here is the one that I want you to push into the countertop. So your motion is going down into that countertop or into your legs. And as soon as that hand pushes into your legs, you will feel your core activate, you'll feel your arms activate. And that's really what we're talking about. So that's going to happen with every single step when you're walking. So I have a lot of clients when we start doing this, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be able to get rid of my bingo arms. Me, of course, I'm like, I don't know what that means. And so they're like, yeah, this little flab right here. I'm going to be able to get rid of my bingo arms, which some people call bat arms. But again, you're getting a better workout and you're helping to improve your total body and not just your lower extremity. So what makes the activator poles different than other poles that are on the market? Because like I said, we have some safety features and comfort features that really set us apart from other poles. First, we're going to talk about our pin locking system. So as you'll see there, our poles have a pin lock that locks into place. So once we get it locked, it's not going anywhere. As a physical therapist, I think this is critical for my clients because a lot of my older adults have issues, arthritis maybe, or weak grip strength. And so if they don't get the poles twisted, like most other poles, into place and tightened, the poles will collapse on them. And that just defeats the purpose of using poles. Other poles that are on the market might have a clip locking system. And what I'm told about those is that they don't collapse, but over time they gradually get shorter and shorter. So you're continually having to bring them back up to the proper height. So this pin locking system is huge in my eyes for the safety of my clients. The other thing that the pin locking system allows is that it allows for you to put 200 pounds through this pole. So if you're using the poles to offload painful joints, which the research shows that by using poles, you can offload your joints by 30 to 37%, I think the exact number is 37%. So if you have painful knees or painful lower back or any kind of painful joints in your lower extremity, you're going to be able to offload some of those through the poles, which can be huge. My boyfriend, whenever we'd go hiking, had a painful lower back. And I talked him into using the poles, and now we can go hiking anywhere, and he uses them a lot. Another example is I had somebody approach me and their knees had been hurting so bad they couldn't walk anymore. So I introduced the poles. They were able to offload her joints, and she followed up with me and actually told me that she was able to go to Disney World with her family. Her grandson had made her ride in a wheelchair on the first day. And on the second day, she was like, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. I'm using my poles. And she was able to go the entire day through Disney World without any pain. And she was able to keep up with her family. So I think that speaks volumes in regards to how they can help people and their quality of life. The other thing I really like about the poles is that they have this big surface area on the bottom. So that's really going to help people to be able to stabilize and stay upright. Our poles do have some options and versatility. So like I said, if you don't need them for balance, we could take these off. We have a carbide tip to be able to use in grass, gravel, maybe on ice, but we also have some booty bottoms or some different bottoms that go onto the poles when people are using them for the fitness technique. So there's really 3 different options to go onto the bottom of our poles to be able to utilize them however you need to individually. So that's that carbide tip that we just talked about to be able to go on lots of different surfaces. And then our poles also have what's considered anti-vibration in 3 different places. So down here at the ferrule and then up at the handle. And what that does is that when you plant that pole on the ground, it's going to reduce the reverberation that comes up into your hand, which is usually not very comfortable. If you're familiar with poles at all, you'll notice that most poles have a strap on them, just like in the picture. And ours were specifically designed without a strap because the research shows that these straps increase risk for injury. If people were slipping or falling, what happens is that their thumb gets stuck in that strap and they get what's called skier's thumb. They'll either break their thumb, or some straps go all the way around the wrist, and you have a higher incidence of breaking your wrist if you slip and fall and using poles. So again, our poles were specifically designed without the strap, but what the strap provides for Nordic Walking is that strengthening piece, and that's where our ledge comes in. So the integrity is still there to help people get stronger. It's just through the ledge instead of through the strap. All right, my favorite part of these poles is the patented core grip that includes that ledge right there. So our poles, if you notice, will if you look at them at the top, will have an L and an R on them. And that's because we definitely want people to make sure that they have the poles in the right hand so that their hand can gently rest on this ledge. That ledge allows it so people don't have to death grip because they're not afraid that their hand's going to fall off that ledge. So they can keep their hand nice and loose, which keeps their entire arm nice and loose. The ledge allows people's wrists to stay in a nice neutral position instead of going into an extended position, which eventually is going to probably cause some overuse injuries. The ledge, as we've already talked a little bit, helps with balance. It helps with offloading of weight, and it also helps with core strengthening. You'll notice on the screen that there is an ease of use certification by the Arthritis Foundation, and that's huge. It is a big testing process in order to get their labels, and you've probably seen that seal of approval on lots of different other products in the grocery store. So our tests have gone through their testing regimen. I think there's 8 different categories, and it's tested by lots of different people that have multiple types of arthritis. And we have passed the last 3 years their certification process in order to be able to, they say our poles are easy to use in regards to adjusting them and utilizing them as walking poles. So now I just want to kind of go through some of the things that we've been talking about and what really help people with Parkinson's. So on this one, I really am trying to point out that poles can help people stand more upright. Sometimes people are utilizing walkers, and as you can see on the right-hand side here, they really raise the height of those of her handles of the walker to try to get her to stand more upright, and it really just shoved her shoulders into her ears. But for a lot of people with Parkinson's, whether they use a walker or not, they have what's called postural instability, right? So they are starting to lean forward. So poles, as you can notice on the left-hand side, are really helping her to stand nice and upright. And she has a big smile on her face. So this is one of my favorite side-by-sides. I take a look at this lady. You'll notice that her arms aren't swinging, which is usually common for people with Parkinson's. She's taking her steps on the left than she is on the right when she's using poles. She's really getting a great arm swing in there. So those arms swing. On the left, notice she's kind of wobbling back and forth from side to side. The poles help to reduce that and help with that symmetrical gait pattern that we want to see. And all of this is done on an uneven surface, or it provides her additional confidence to be able to walk in the grass. For some people that have Parkinson's, they will have what's called considered freezing of gait, or it will be where your feet feel like they're frozen in the ground. And so poles, for a lot of people, can help them get either unfrozen or not freeze at all. So we're going to take a little look at this gentleman. He's a big freezer. His instructor said, with the activator poles, my gentleman, who is an extreme freezer and festinator, was able to do quarter turns and go over obstacles. It was amazing. His wife had the biggest smile on her face. I am beaming from the successes. So the poles provide some confidence, allow him to get bigger movements so that he can get those feet cleared and not freeze. With some of my other clients, I've been able to use poles to help get people unfrozen by just using them as a target, right? So I cue them to, hey, take a step through the poles. And so they're able to do that nice big step through the poles. And at the end, I'm going to leave some time to be able to demonstrate some of this stuff if you guys are interested in me showing it a little bit more detail. So let's take a look and listen to what this gentleman has to say about how the poles have helped him.
Oh, how are you?
I'm excellent, thank you. So you got the poles today, and we've just been walking and talking. So tell me what you told me about what the poles are helping you with today.
The poles are helping me get my full stride. During PT, it was noticed that I only took half a step with one leg, and now that leg, I'm taking a full step, and my glute is actually sore.
You're feeling it in your glutes.
Yes.
They're going to be screaming at you for the next few days.
Yes, yes.
As a physical therapist, I love to hear that. And I pretty much told him that I loved that his glutes were going to be sore because I love that they were actually getting activated, right? So common thing that we see with people with Parkinson's, as he described, is that he wasn't getting a full step length on one side. By adding the poles, he was able to get that big step lengths, big symmetrical step lengths on both sides. And by doing that, he could feel his glutes activate. So he was getting stronger. Hopefully by doing that, it will encourage and reinforce those big stepping patterns on both sides. And eventually it will become more automatic for him to be able to take those big steps on both sides. This is Bill Truen, and he was using the urban polling technique. So another example of using the fitness technique, not just for balance and stuff. But his comment is that he uses it to do half marathons. So he's now completed 23 half marathons, but he notices a carryover effect. So after he's used the poles, he notices that the benefits stay with him for several hours, not just minutes, for several hours afterwards. It helps with his coordination. He experiences less freezing, reduced stiffness, increased fluidity. So really thinking about how the poles can not only help immediately while you're using them, but afterwards as a carryover as well. So poles can help achieve goals, right? So a lot of the times what I hear people saying or in my clinic is that they start putting limitations on themselves. And I, as an owner of my company, which is why I started my company, that was so devastating to hear. So my company is all about getting people back out into their communities, no matter what that looks like for them, and helping them achieve their goals, right? So what is your big goal? What do you want to accomplish? I don't think we should ever put limitations on ourselves. We shouldn't let our healthcare professionals put limitations on us. We shouldn't let our loved ones sometimes will put limitations on us, and not on purpose. But the poles can help achieve some of those goals that might be a little bit harder now that we have a diagnosis of Parkinson's. So I met this gentleman at the World Parkinson's Congress, and he took the poles. He got some poles while he was there, and he really wanted to do this hike. It was 90-kilometer trek, or 56 miles in 5 days. And he told me it was going to be really hilly. But that was his goal. And he was going to raise money for Parkinson's. And so this is what he had to say about his journey during the Shake It Up in Tuscany event that he did. I use the Activator 2 poles every day. I very much doubt I could have completed the 5 days without them. I suffer from rigidity in my right side, so they kept my right arm moving. We're great for extra leverage when going uphill, especially with those hand grips. Perfect for steep downhill to steady the pace. And at the end of the day, when weary, they provided that extra balance. So throughout the whole time, he wasn't using them necessarily for the same thing. He needed them to go uphill. Sometimes they help to carry you uphill, and you can do what's considered double polling, because if you put both poles in front of you at one time, they're going to help even more with some of that going downhill. If you put them both out in front of you at the same time, they can help slow down going downhill. A lot of the times I hear people, they experience some knee pain when they're going downhill, so it can take some pressure off those joints. But again, he allowed the poles to help him accomplish his goal and utilize them in a lot of different ways over the 5 days. So let's talk about them a little bit more in regards to exercises specifically. And if we have more time at the end, I can show you a few exercises that will be really good. This is from our partner, Rocksteady Boxing, and how they utilize them. So they were outside utilizing them, but also utilizing the boxing as well. So they're a good adjunct to use together in regards to creating different exercise classes. This right here is Georgia. And she's utilizing the poles to push her outside of her comfort zone a little bit, right? So she's challenging her balance a lot. It's giving her the confidence to do that. And why do we want to challenge our balance that much? Because that's how that neuroplasticity works, right? So the principles of neuroplasticity, or making those positive brain changes to make new neural pathways in order to help slow or decrease the progression of Parkinson's. We need to challenge ourselves to the point where we're almost off balance. So this allowed her to get up onto that beam and challenge herself a little bit more than what she would be able to without them, with the goal of hopefully being able to not have to use them at all. So here, there's really great music that goes along with this, but I wanted to speak at the same time. So we're doing the exercises in seated, right? So we can use them for that flexibility and range of motion that we need. We're getting big, huge movements here in all different directions, up and down, from side to side. And now we're standing up. So now are standing up with the poles. Again, they're helping with our balance so that we can make bigger movements, right? We're getting more amplitude. They were getting more amplitude on their movements. Without poles, they probably would have taken smaller movements. And we really want to exaggerate the size of our movements so that in our everyday life, they become normal again instead of shrinking. Again, poles can really help on various surfaces and increase intensity, which I mentioned before, but the recommendations for exercise for people with Parkinson's is at 150 minutes of moderate to high intensity exercise. Part of it being aerobic, which that's where the research shows is the real big key piece in regards to slowing the disease. We need to get our heart rate up to that 80 to 85% max heart rate. So being able to do hills, being able to do more strenuous activity is really going to help. It challenges our balance, which we know needs to be in there as well, and agility. It helps with flexibility, like we had already said. So just a little bit of a recap in regards to making sure we showed this at the beginning in regards to what the research is showing us about how poles can help people with Parkinson's. I think we touched on all of this, but let's just do a quick little review. So putting poles in people's hands help them to stand more upright. And I am going to, at the end, like I said, kind of demonstrate how that works when we have the poles in our hands. It helps to increase confidence, improve our balance. It helps us to get better strength. We can use poles to reduce our stiffness or rigidity that we often feel. We just talked about how we can get larger movements by utilizing poles. The gentleman talked about how his gait pattern got better, and we showed demonstrations on how it can reduce freezing. We can really challenge coordination. So for some people, they can walk really great with the poles, but what happens is that when we start trying to challenge our coordination or the sequencing of opposite arm, opposite leg, doing two things at one time, like multitasking, it can really become a problem. So sometimes we use the poles to really help improve that. Again, it can help with decreasing strength, anxiety, and depression, and really help to get people active outdoor. I've heard a lot of people say that they love to use them traveling. They don't necessarily need them all the time, but in order to be able to go those longer distances, they need the poles like through an airport in order to be able to go on if they're traveling internationally, cobblestones. So let's take a look at traveling with poles in a little bit more detail. Again, poles can be used all year long in tons and tons of different seasons. I've used them snowshoeing before. I've had clients use them cross-country skiing before. We go hiking on trails, and then we just go and use them in the community as a fitness tool as well. But let's listen to Larry Gifford. He is the co-founder of PD Avengers. Most of you, or a lot of you, have probably heard of him before. He's also an ambassador for World Parkinson's Congress, and he's previously done some podcasts. But let's take a listen to what he has to say about using the poles.
The activator poles should be called confidence poles.
I love that.
Because it really is for at least for me, it's what gives me the confidence to go into a crowd, to go through an airport, to go on a hike, to take a longer walk. Like it gives me enough certainty to say yes. So thank you for making them.
Oh, well, thank you.
So Larry was actually diagnosed as a young onset Parkinson's disease. At the age of 40, he just started having falls. So they've allowed him to remain independent. And what he told me, I had the fortune of meeting him in Barcelona, Spain at the World Parkinson's Congress. And what he told me was that they not only give him the confidence to increase his stride, but he can now, when he uses them, beat his wife when they're out walking. So big kudos to him. So it helped him to increase his speed as well. This is usually when people ask me, what about traveling? How do I take poles with me when I travel? And I always tell people that I started recommending these for my clients. And then once I started hearing about all of the research that's behind them, and I started using them myself. And so I walk my dogs. And so when they are like, how do you walk your dogs with poles? I have a leash that goes around my waist. You'll see here in the picture. It helps a lot. My dog I call Zigzag. He goes back and forth across the trail all the time. He doesn't get in my way and I don't get in his way. My only warning about using a waist leash is that if your dog is a puller, you want to make sure that you're protecting your back, because when he pulls, you don't want it to pull too much. I've also seen leashes that have, instead of a big handle to hold onto, it has like a glove that can go onto your hand, so then you can hold the dog and the poles at the same time. In regards to the next thing, people are like, I can't take poles if I have to carry anything. So my recommendation there is to either use a crossbody purse. You can use a backpack, like the lady on the right is doing. A lot of the times, if you're going grocery shopping, you can use the poles until you get to the cart, and then you're going to take the cart back to your car anyway, because you're going to have the groceries in there. But definitely, I recommend, I just did a retreat with people and I gave them backpacks as their swag gift. And I gave them water bottles. And so the whole weekend they had their backpacks and they had their water bottles in there. They had snacks in there so that we could go everywhere with our poles. But if you're traveling through the airport or anything like that, our poles do, if you are checking your bag, if you take the poles apart like this, they will fit in most check bags at a diagonal. If you are only carrying on a bag, you will need to use the poles through security as your assistive device, which most people need them in order to go those long distances through the airport anyway. So when you're going through TSA, all you need to do is tell them like, hey, this is what I need as an assistive device to get through the airport. I use it instead of a cane because my doctors told me it's better for me. So they shouldn't question you. I've actually tested that out myself. I've used the poles through the airport and they very nicely just told me I needed to put them on the conveyor belt and offered to help me through the scanner. So that's kind of looking at traveling with them. And then I just wanted to leave you with this. Again, he lives part-time. He is a snowbird, so he goes down to Florida. I just want you to take a look. I love side-by-sides in regards to the difference between walking on the sand, which he wants to do.
When you're ready.
I'm going, I think.
With and without the poles. So ultimately, right, that makes a huge difference in his life. It helps him to remain independent. It helps him to do things that he loves. And it helps to improve his quality of life, right? Being able to be out, stay active. I know that he goes out there with his grandkids and those kind of things. So I am going to stop sharing my screen now. I will take any questions. I am more than happy. I'm planning on getting up and doing a little bit of a demonstration. I don't care which one comes first. If you have questions, I'll make sure I answer all those and then I can do demos at the end. Whatever you think, Diane.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, the question and answer, the Q&A box is open. Please type your questions in there and we'll be happy to get to them. Thank you so much. What a wonderful presentation so far. Yeah, it's been fantastic information. I love the picture of the sand. We're based out of Florida, so that could be life-changing for so many people. And I so appreciate the screen, the side-by-side that you shared with the woman that was hunched over her walker and then standing erect with the poles, because I see that so often.
Absolutely. I love the side-by-sides. I think they're so telling, more than words, right? Like seeing two pictures just like that side by side, gives such a great visual.
Sure does. No questions currently, so if you want to go ahead and stop sharing your screen and do a little demo for us yourself, that would be great.
I did such a great job of explaining everything. Nobody
Don't
has
be
questions.
shy, everyone. Feel free to
Yes,
send the
please
questions
don't be shy.
over.
Okay, so I'm gonna pin myself here.
Here, a couple of, one is a comment, no question from me, but the information presented was well done. I really like the video showing side by side. And then we had a question about what poles do you use for urban polling? And maybe you can tell about how to order them or something.
Absolutely. So, Urban Polling as a company has what's called the activator poles. You can go to urbanpolling.com and right on our main screen there, it will talk about activator poles. Those are the poles that I would get. You can also purchase our poles on Amazon. And I'm assuming through Neuro Challenge, you're going to be able to, if you're affiliated with them and do things with them, I know they have some poles there, and I'm assuming they're going to be able to purchase poles too. But our activator poles, we have actually 4 different kinds. I have today with me the Moda poles. So they are colorful. There are some just silver ones with red. There are black ones. And then we have what's considered the Activator 2 poles. The Activator 2 poles will go up to a little bit taller. So I forgot to tell everybody today, our normal activator poles go up to a height of 6 foot. Our Activator 2 poles will go up to a height of 6'4". They also will allow for a little bit more weight. So as these poles, we recommend weight bearing of a person to be 250 or their weight capacity. Our Activator 2 poles will go up to like 325. So they allow for a little bit more. The only other thing the Activator 2 poles allow is they collapse a little bit smaller, so it's a little bit easier to fit them in to your travel bag. But great question. You definitely can go to Amazon, like I said, or you can go directly to urbanpolling.com to get our poles. So I'm just going to show a few different, I'm going to show walking and how I would get them set up for people. Get this chair out of the way. So they are 2 different heights right now. So when I'm setting up my poles, I want my arms, I want to be standing up nice and tall, and I want my arms to be at about a 90-degree angle right here. What I like to do at first is just get people acclimated with the poles standing here. So we've talked a lot about that patented ledge. I do have the poles in my left and right hand. So my hand is resting on that ledge. I don't even have to hold on to the poles in order to be able to keep them upright, which is huge for people with Parkinson's, because a lot of the times when I do exercises, I like to get those hands extended so we can work on finger exercises as well that are going to help with our fine motor skills of handwriting or buttoning those shirts. So the first exercise I usually do is just have people stand here and really just press into that ledge. So what I'm saying is what we practiced a little bit earlier is that you're going to press into that ledge. So gently pushing down. What do you notice? That upright posture, right? I gently press into that ledge and I gain 2 or 3 inches. So now that postural instability, I'm standing up nice and tall. As soon as I press into that ledge, I'm feeling my arms, my core activate. And then if we're walking and we're using them for balance, the poles, the first one that we're going to do is, as she demonstrated earlier, the poles are going to stay in front of you. You're really going to reach out. I use the analogy of a choo-choo train, right? So you're going to push out in front of you and the poles are going to stay nice and upright. When you're learning the technique, I would give myself plenty of room because it's a lot easier to get into a rhythm than it is to start and stop. If you go to Urban Polling, there are examples under the tabs called Getting Started on exactly how to set the poles up, as well as how to use the different techniques. So it'll show the activator technique and it will show the Urban Polling technique. The Urban Polling technique is the one where you walk a little bit faster. So you would put on the boot bottoms, which I'm not going to do today for time's sake. But the poles go down by your side for that one. And you're going to really reach out and the booties are going to catch on the ground and they're going to propel you forward. So it's going to look like this. So fast I went right off the screen. Sorry about that. So that is the one that's going to help you to walk a little bit faster. And you don't have to use one or the other. When I go hiking, if I'm going up or down hills, I usually use the activator technique. If I'm on flat ground, I'll put my poles back behind me and then they will help me to walk faster. So you can go back and forth even when you're out on a single walk. Just some other exercises that I think are really important to start doing, and some that a lot of the times will do with my people with Parkinson's, is really start working on that weight shifting, right? So that's what's going to help with that freezing of gait that I talked about. So standing here again, nice and upright, our arms are at 90 degrees. I will ask people to get their feet as wide as their poles, right? Because we want that nice big posture in order to be, or that nice big stance in order to have better balance. And then we're just going to weight shift back and forth. Because that bigger weight shift is going to help us with that freezing of gait. And our poles, if we are frozen on the ground, we can use them as a target. Like sometimes people will use a laser light as a target. Sometimes we can use noise as a target. So if we're using it as a target, I'm going to be here and I'm going to ask my client just to take a big step through the pole, and then usually they're able to take off. If they're more of an auditory person and we're frozen right here, I'll ask them to start getting a beat. Right, so they're using the poles to create that beat, and then they take off. Okay, so there's multiple ways to use the poles outside of just walking to be cute, to be some external cues that are going to help people with Parkinson's. But when we're walking here, right, think about forcing that arm swing, which is really important for people with Parkinson's. By forcing that arm swing, we're also getting our trunk to rotate a little bit more. So that's really helping with some of that rigidity. And like we mentioned numerous times, I'm upright and symmetrical. Instead of being off to one side or hunched over forward. By allowing myself to stand up upright, all of my joints are in the proper alignment. And so it allows me to take bigger steps, bigger, more symmetrical steps. Well, how much more time? Is there any other questions? I could do some exercises.
We do have a couple of other questions.
All right.
One was about where they can view the recording, and it will be available at neurochallenge.org. It usually takes a few days for it to be available on our YouTube page, but you can go to neurochallenge.org and it'll be under program recordings. And the other question was, can you use the urban pulling technique when walking with the activator pole wide tips, or should you change up the tips?
So I call our activator poles our lifelong poles, and I would change them up and put the boot bottoms on. And so myself personally, urban polling has another line of poles that are called urban poles, and they come with the booty bottoms at the bottom, but they don't have that pin locking system. And I find this to be very compelling. I think it is amazing. So I only sell the activator poles. For people that want to use them for fitness, I encourage buying the bell bottoms, or the boot bottoms, I mean, to be able to have. So then you can switch them back and forth between, use this one pole, and then you have two different bottoms at the bottom. And I think about that too with, sometimes people buy the poles and they need them originally for balance, and then their balance gets so good because they're working on it. Then they can buy the boot bottoms and put those on and use the poles for fitness. Some people though will be using them for fitness, may start out that way, and then they have to have surgery on their knee or their back, or they have an injury. And so at that point, they put on the bell bottoms or the flat bottoms, and they use the activator technique until they get better, and then they can go back to the fitness technique. So really, I feel like the activators can be, like I said, a lifelong tool and go back and forth. And the activators are what I use personally as well. Great question.
Thank you. Thank you.
The only other thing that I wanted to mention is that urban polling does a really, really great job of creating or providing workshops and stuff as well. So we usually have a monthly webinar. We have podcasts that are out there. And if you go to urbanpolling.com, it says get on our newsletter. If you get on the newsletter, it will tell you when those are going to be, what they're going to be about. Every month, it's usually something different, but a lot of the times it's about Parkinson's, or it's has a Parkinson's piece to it. It might be neurological or something like that. And I know that some of the older podcasts that I've interviewed Laura from LSVT Big. I've interviewed Rocksteady Boxing. I've interviewed Becky from Power Moves. So those might be fun to go out and listen to as well if anybody's interested. Definitely get on our newsletter.
What is the site that they can get on that at?
urbanpolling.com.
Perfect.
And then there's a little click right there that says click on our newsletter. We're on social media too, and we share lots and lots of people's exercise ideas. So if you're looking for exercise ideas, you can get on our social media. We also have YouTube, which has some exercise ideas out there as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. Fabulous presentation, great information. We're very excited about urban polling. Thanks for your time today, and everybody have a great afternoon.
Thank you for having me, and thank you everybody for spending the last hour with me. It was great. I hope you got something out of it, and I look forward to you becoming an urban poller.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.